Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Women in Sectional Title webinar. Today, we'll be discussing urban governance and the public life of cities. For me, this is a really vibrant and dynamic area of the law, and the Women in Sectional Title platform has recently had occasion to facilitate a 6-week training program for women within the inner city, being trustees, chair ladies, and owners. And I think it was really a great way to get to know each other. And I think our eyes were opened on both sides as to what is actually going on in the inner city, which is a really faceless kind of environment for many of us. But I can't emphasize with enough detail how much I think that when residents in these kind of buildings take collective action, they can mobilize a community scheme to improve, regenerate, and redevelop. And I think that's really why I felt it was so important to have a webinar on this topic. Helping us to be able to open a conversation with these ladies were our stalwart sponsors. So thank you so much to CIA, ZFIN, Meeting Pal, We Connect You, Sectional Title Solutions, BCM Track, and most recently PKF Octagon. So let me set the scene for all of you just on the inner city. We're talking now about Johannesburg inner city and Hillbrow town, those areas. That area is characterized by high-rise residential buildings. And in the past, they were highly densified, expensive units where a lot of business took place from sub-Saharan Africa. And I think we know that it was a whites-only area. And when Nelson Mandela was released and you had a lot of the liberation organizations being unbanned, we had this influx of people coming into the inner city. It was an unprecedented influx. It took place in the quickest period of time. And I think that obviously the buildings themselves were not ready, the infrastructure was not ready. You had a lot of businesses moving out of the inner city, and we've had a lot of challenges. The challenges include things like lack of maintenance, hijacking of buildings. We've got informal trading. You've got situations where trustees just not really understanding sectional title and have more of a tenant kind of mentality. And I think all these things have conspired to leading us to a situation where we've got urban decay in our inner city. And we can hopefully look at what the challenges are, but also what the solutions are in future. So I'm very happy today to have with us, we've got ladies from the inner city, and these are the ladies who were actually in our training courses, in our training course where we sat for 6 weeks and we went through everything, and it was wonderful to meet with them. I'd like to introduce you now, first of all, to Johanna Matley. So Johanna is the Johannesburg from the Johannesburg Women's Forum. She's got a lot to do with the inner city and with what's going on in the inner city. Hi, Johanna.
Hi, Marina, and good morning to everyone in the team. You are all welcome, and thank you for this platform.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So, Johanna, we're going to talk today about informal trading because that's something you really raised quite a bit in our seminars. Tell me about the informal trading. What's going on? I mean, how many informal traders are we looking at the moment in Johannesburg?
Well, right now it's difficult to say as they come and go. Remember, Johannesburg is perceived as a Pan-African hub. So the figure is there around plus minus 50,000, I can say.
Sure, 50,000. I mean, you know, the thing is, a lot of people have always wanted to just ignore the informal traders. They used to be known as hawkers. And I think that kind of harkens back to the past. And we're referring to people now as informal traders, and we recognize that the informal trading sector is huge. I mean, it's huge and it's moving and shaking. But I mean, council obviously has been on a bit of a roller coaster ride with these informal traders. I don't think they've known how to deal with them. What's their current attitude? What are they doing at the moment, Jana?
Well, the council wants to re-regulate the traders. They want to allocate them from the markets and the malls.
Okay, so they want to take them off the streets basically and place them in areas where they can, I suppose, be controlled.
Yes, it's what is happening right now, because as of the 1st of July, the council has sent the JMPD to come and assist to clear up the street.
And the JMPD, I mean, how many officers are they going to be? Are they going to be effective, do you think?
Well, the MMC of Economic Development mentioned that he's going to dispense 250 in the city to help clear up the street and allocate them into the right places.
And that's actually happening now, is that right? Now,
yes, it is happening now. As you go right in the inner city, you check GP and developers, and in Plain Street towards park stations is already getting clearer. So we're hoping for the better change.
But what do you think? Like, do you think, I mean, in my experience where I stay, there are informal traders, and I know that our ward councillor has tried to, you know, put together some spaces for the informal traders. Do informal traders want to be regulated? Do you see this working? And how are they going to implement this? What kind of control is there going to be?
Well, they are planning to use the smart cards. On the issue of people, whether they want to be regulated or not regulated, well, that is out of question, because there is no house without the rules. So people will have to abide by the rules and the bylaws of the city. So we are happy for the new change, and surely they will get used to it.
Great, thank you. I'd like to now turn to Adele. Adele Duma is a trustee at ARC Royal Body Corporate and was also quite vocal in my training courses. How are you, Adele? Welcome.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you for having me. I'm good.
Okay, so good. I'm glad. So today I want to talk to you about overcrowding. Overcrowding has become a really, really big problem in the inner cities. So you know that the World Economic Forum predicted that in 2050, you would have double the sizes of the inner cities in Africa. And I think that's particularly concerning. You know, already we've got so much overcrowding because of this densification. So tell us about your current situation, maybe in your building, just to make it more personal.
Pardon?
Just to make it more personal, you know, in your building, what is the situation with overcrowding?
Well, our building is overcrowded, because you might find that maybe a 2-bedroom flat has about 15 people, a bachelor maybe has about 7 people. And that on its own, it puts pressure on our infrastructure. You might find that we have to fix the lift now and then, or maybe the lift is no longer working because it's working overtime. Even our piping system, even the harmony in the building is affected because of overcrowding. Yeah, the noise, everything is just, it's a mess.
And as you're a trustee of your building, and have you discussed it? Are there any measures that you're implementing? What are you thinking about?
Yes, we were thinking of amending our rules. You see, because right now we cannot really say how many people are actually staying in one flat, because people are saying different things. But we can go with the bylaw, because the bylaw, it states how many people are supposed to be in a 2-bedroom, in a 1-bedroom, in a bachelor.
I've actually always found, and just for the people listening, I've always found it quite difficult when people ask about overcrowding. You know, how many people are allowed? It's quite a sort of innocuous concept, this overcrowding, because bylaws differ from area to area as well. There was one stage where, you know, what's overcrowded for me might not be overcrowded for you. I mean, they're talking about a 2-bedroom, not having more than 2 people. I mean, that might not be sort of feasible under many circumstances. And if people are used to living in the townships where maybe they're much closer together, then it's not such a big deal to be 3 people in a room, you know. So I think we've got to bear that in mind. But I know also, I've been, you'll know a place called Dlalanje, Adele. Dlalanje is at the Ponte building. And
Yes.
they form these walking tours in the inner city. Please, guys, do me a favor. If any of you want to go and do a walking tour in Johannesburg, and then it goes down the water tower into Yeovil, we've done that walking tour. It's fantastic. And there's a crowd called Dlalanje who actually put those together. If anyone wants the details, please contact me. But you've got these kind of people putting things into place. And Ponte building, they took us to the Ponte building. We went up to the top floor of the Ponte building, and we saw the beautiful view. And what they've managed to do with that building is actually quite amazing. But how do you think they got it right? I mean, what did they use to get that building right? Because it just looks as though it's not much overcrowding at the moment there.
Yeah, no, the biometric system access, right? You see that one, it works wonders, because they installed the turnstile gate and the fingerprint system, so which is kept up to date, and they have a tight security system there, so that to limit the access in and out. So yeah, that's what they have done. So, and it works. The problem is it's very expensive. But it's working for them, and it's something that we can look at the buildings when they have the budget, because that controls the overcrowding.
Very much. It's all about money at the end of the day. But if people are not paying the levies, you know, it's so dangerous if you're not controlling the levies at the end of the day. But also we know that the United Nations did a report. It's called the UN Habitat, that came into buildings all over the world and saw that there are quite a few health issues. And what are the health issues that you see that are problematic in these inner city buildings?
The health issues.
Yeah.
You might find that because of the overcrowding, actually it overlaps, because when you have too many people under the small space, and that on its own is detrimental in the health issues. You might find that one child is sick because they interact in the corridors, and then they catch all these diseases, and the other people are not that health conscious. They might find that they throw rubbish everywhere. They're supposed to throw rubbish in the basement, in the dustbins, and they put it in the corridors. So that on its own, it's a problem. Yeah,
I can absolutely understand that. I also wanted to talk to this hijacking of buildings, because very often we have a situation where we ask to go and collect levies in a building, and you say, no, we're not going. Even the sheriff of the court is scared to go to these hijacked buildings. What does this mean, a hijacked building, for people who are not understanding what's actually taking place? And how many buildings do you think are affected? Is it a big thing going on in the inner city?
It is actually a big thing in the inner city these days, because, you know, owners, they buy these units and they disappear. It's like the faceless owners. So now people take advantage of those things. You know, the slum laws, they come in, they actually come in, and then they act as the owners, even though they're not owners, and they're collecting all these rentals from these people because of that. Remember, they're not owners, they're just tenants. So they take all these monies, but because they are there to enrich themselves, they don't actually pay the municipality water and lights. And then remember, these people, they're going to be angry because they are paying the rent. And now if the owners come back and say, you know what, because see, the slum laws are not registered with the deeds office, so the bill does not come to their name. So now when the owners realize that, ooh, this building is accumulating debt under my name, when they come in and say, let's cut off the electricity and water, the people that are staying there are going to be very angry because they are paying. Now they will become so violent that they will start now vandalizing everything that they can, what is left of the building, because they are angry. They are paying, yet they're not getting the services. Yeah, because
And
the
what
money is
about
going to the wrong people.
And what about like the council? What about Joburg and the municipalities with cutting electricity? I mean, what are they doing about it? These people, everybody's just using electricity. Do you think they're also scared?
Yes, they're also scared. But remember, they say that it is the right for the people to have these water and light. It's not the law does not allow to actually people to be cut off of those necessities like water and light. So they don't cut it off. So it just accumulates the debt.
Well, water I can understand. Water I understand, but electricity,
Yeah.
I think I think a lot of the times, unfortunately, and I can say this because I have experience of it, I think the councils are often linked in with them, as are the police. The police won't go in there to a lot of the buildings.
They're scared as well, yeah.
Yeah. So what is this? What would the solution be with these hijacked buildings? Because at one stage, we did see the Red Scorpions getting involved. You know, I don't know if that was only landlord-owned buildings where they got eviction orders maybe. But
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think's the future for these buildings?
I would say the owners, when they buy into sectional title, they must know what they're getting themselves into. So they must be hands-on. They must be part and parcel of their investment. They must actually make sure that their buildings are run properly. Because when they become faceless owners, that's when the slums will take advantage and they hijack the building. So they must be there. Make sure that the municipality is paid, people are happy. So yeah. Yeah.
You know what the thing is, it does start with education of owners. But I mean, even in our training sessions that we had with all the ladies, there was often like a look of surprise on people's faces about what I was teaching. You know, really, is that what has to happen? Who's that? I mean, even the community scheme ombud service. You know, nobody, you might have vaguely known about it, but do you think there's a lot more that needs to be done with all the trustees in the inner city?
Yeah. Remember, the trustees have the fiduciary duty to the board corporate, so they must make sure that they do their job, because when they were elected, they agreed to be part and parcel of being the trustee. So they must do the job as well to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Yeah, and the CISOs is there to assist if people need that assistance. You know, yeah.
Yeah, and did you how did you feel about the community scheme ombud service? I mean, do you think after hearing about it, you guys will utilize it more?
Definitely, because you see, we know that as a building, we don't have money. So now we will learn that as long as we are registered with CISOs, then we can utilize those services that they are offering to us. So in case there are any disputes, things like that, we can go to them for advices. They will tell us what to do and how to do things. So it's a good thing to know that you've got people in your corner that you can always run to for advices, and they can actually assist in the running of the building, in the well-being running of the building, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I think from my perspective as well, just to say that the community scheme ombud service, I think, needs to do a lot more work in these areas, because transformation, when I was on the board of the community scheme ombud service, transformation and education is a priority. It's a huge priority. So it really worries me that speaking to trustees on the ground, because when you're on the ground, it makes a big difference, that they didn't even know about the community scheme ombud service. So, you know, if anyone's listening from the service, and I know this is recorded, it goes out everywhere, please, we urge you to take notice of the inner city. These are the areas that need attention. And I'm very pleased to say that all the ladies who are on this training program are visiting the community scheme ombud service during the course of next week. We've been invited to go there. So already, you know, there's just some movement and something good happening. So yeah, I'm very glad. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you, Adele.
Thank you.
Moving on to Samukulizwe Zungu. So, Sammy, you are actually a part-time pilot, I know, and you're very much involved in the agri-housing and cooperatives. And I found that you really added to our debate in our sectional title training. And the one thing that seemed to worry you a lot was the maintenance of the buildings, maintenance and infrastructure. Why do you think it's so vital for these buildings to start becoming more aware of maintaining themselves?
Good morning, Marina, and thanks for the invite. It has been of main concern to me, hence the well-maintained building means a long-lasting building, a well-maintained building means a high-selling value at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, we are not just here to reside on them. Some of them we're running business at times. You might be having tenants that are occupying, but if it's not well maintained, meaning that it cannot be used in the near future, actually. So infrastructure, if it's well taken care, it can last us longer. If it's well planned, maintained, it will last us forever.
And from a maintenance point of view, do the trustees, I mean, we spoke about in our training course, we spoke about the written maintenance, repair and replacement plan for these buildings. Do you think that anybody knows about this in Johannesburg?
Honestly, by the look of things, looking from outside the building, you can tell this building is not well maintained, meaning there's no trustee. If there's no trustee, definitely there won't be maintenance plan. Nothing will be done on the building.
Okay, so that's really where the education side's got to come. And it's got to be a long-term story, long-term. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight because of money. I mean, money is a problem. What about infrastructure? I mean, you know what, the CEO of the Johannesburg Development Agency a couple of years ago stated that the inner city has actually lost 80% of its value. 80% of its value is really, really big. And I think that that goes a long way to give us concern about asset value going forward. But infrastructure around the buildings has been also problematic because of this tsunami of urban densification. How does it work practically where you guys stay? Is it, do you have a ward councillor? Are there ward councillors in these areas?
Yes, there are ward councillors in each area, and the also municipal councillors that also work hand in hand with the building owners and stuff. But it's all the swift response from the councillor and also the service delivery itself. So it can be a working councillor, but not service delivery at the end of the day.
And if you have to phone and moan about certain things, do they listen? Do they fix anything, or is it just falling on deaf ears?
It partly other areas they have a swift response, as I've mentioned. Other places won't have a response as much as others. So you might find a best pipe can accumulate accounts to other buildings, because it will be fixed days later, or it can be fixed immediate on depending on the response on time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think, you know, that maintenance side of it in any building is huge. I mean, I had a building in Killarney, which is actually a good area, and we had to take the owners of that building. In the old days, we took them to arbitration for failing to maintain the building. And one of the things where you go to the community scheme ombud service, one of the things you can actually claim is that the body corporate maintain the building. You can actually force them and get an order from the community scheme ombud service, which is something that I think inner city trustees and chair people must actually have cognizance of. Thanks very much, Sammy. We're moving on now to Jacob and Ndlovu. So Jacob and I go back many, many years in the sectional title industry. I've met him at a couple of functions over the years, and I really, really take my hat off, or your hat, Jacob, today. I take your hat off to you because you really, really contributed to many, many good things in sectional title, including your focus on women, which helped us to facilitate the training courses, and also on anti-corruption in the inner city. So Jacob is legal, secretariat and environmental consultant, but he does a lot more than that. He's exceptionally hands-on with the managing agents in the area. I don't think there's anybody who knows the inner city as well as you do, Jacob. So welcome.
Thank you, Marina. Greetings to all. I am Mashupujani Jacob Nlo. You rightfully said I'm the Dean of Body Corporates as well. I'm very happy to be here.
Good, thank you. So what interests me at the moment, because we had some news in a couple of weeks ago that your zones, there are certain zones in the inner city and they're called urban development zones. We heard of this a few years ago, but these urban development zones appear to be some sort of tax incentive to improve the inner city. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
All right. It's urban developmental zone. It does attract tax incentives for property developers. So they work as such. The local authority, in this instance, the city of Johannesburg, will have a sit down. For instance, we're going to use the Maboneng precinct. 10, 15 years ago, a lot of property hijackers, they took over that site. If you are a property owner, even if you engage South African Police Service, you will not go anywhere into those buildings. Then the city sat down, led by the mayoral committee. His Majesty, the ex-mayor of the city of Johannesburg, Amos Masondo, was very instrumental. He then sat down with his legal department. They started to trace the owners locally and internationally, and deceased estates. Then they traced some successfully, some they couldn't. Then they said, fine, guys, your properties are being hijacked. You are not passing any payments to the city, yet you are consuming services. Then the owners said the properties are hijacked. We need your help as the city. The city then set up an anti-building hijacking unit in collaboration with other law enforcement agencies, nationally, provincially, and locally. South African Police Service did not have the capacity of knowing what's a building. It was a foreign language to them. So they had to enlist services of private investigators, forensic auditors, and other experts of the industry. Thereafter, the city of Johannesburg listened to property owners. The property owners said, look, we need to have a tax incentive so that we can assist the city to regenerate itself. However, in the midst of that, you will have illegal and legal evictions. For the city to regenerate successfully, it had to go through the process of gentrification as well, which is a topic on its own. However, you've got all these role players, stakeholders coming together to ensure that the city gets regenerated. Thank you.
Excellent. And what do you think? I mean, there's a deadline that's been extended to March of 2023 for this tax incentive to kick in. Do you think that's giving it enough time? I mean, why are they so keen on stopping it at every stage? Would you think it'll be extended and extended?
That's correct. It's work in progress. You know, you build a city brick by brick, breath by breath, hand in glove with others. So every time the government's approach will be, have we achieved 70% of regenerating the city? If we haven't, or we're closer to it, then there will be a need. The government will sit down with property developers and property owners. There will always be a need to extend that tax incentives.
That tax incentive, am I correct in saying that the cost of the building is then deducted from the taxable income of the developer?
That's correct. Obviously, you're going to have to work with the taxman to go through that processes. You're going to need other experts, such as your auditors or accountant, when you file your tax returns. Then you do qualify for that if you disclose that I'm redeveloping this section of the city and I'm a property owner. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, 100%. Also, I wanted to talk to you, Jacob, because I know that you've involved in fighting corruption in the inner city, particularly when it comes to administration and administrators. Obviously, we won't mention names, but I mean, I think advantage has been taken of many of your gracious old lady buildings by administrators. I battle to find an administrator nowadays if we want to place a building under administration. Do you think there's a big gap for honest, ethical people to start taking these buildings under their wings?
Well, administrators in their own right, if they realize there's a vacuum of education, training, and development towards property owners, they're going to take advantage. So when you rehabilitate the buildings, you're not rehabilitating your infrastructure per se. You're not just necessarily implementing your 10-year maintenance plan. You've got to rehabilitate the mindset of the people so that they know from day one that this administrator of this particular property, having appointed by the High Court in most cases, is doing the right thing. You've got to monitor that. You've got to inspect as owners on a daily basis if he or she brings his plumbing team there to make sure that they are not doing a boss job, and yet he's charging the body corporate a leg and an arm. You can't be negligent as an owner. As Adele and others have already said, it has to be a hands-on approach. You've got to know how much of your levy collection are you collecting in your bank account. And in terms of Promotion of Access to Information Act as well, you've got to get access to records such as your financial records. You've got to insist that give us bank statements so that we can see that what you say is reflected on the levy roll correlates to what the bank statements are saying we are generating. If you don't do that, these rogue administrators will take full advantage of you to such an extent that when you query some of the transactions there is a provision in most cases in those court orders to say they must interdict you for interference.
Very much so. And you know, at the moment, the amendments to the Sectional Titles Act, there's a bill coming out. I mean, a change was made. When you wanted to place a building under administration, you'd have to go to the High Court. Then that was amended. You can now actually go to the Magistrates Court. But the amendments are going to go now back to the High Court, which I think is probably a better bet, because the High Court is better able, I think, to appoint administrators. But even when I was applying to place buildings under administration, I mean, the judges just look at whoever you give them, you know, in a CV. Here's a proposed administrator. And they say, okay, here you go. There's your administrator. So there's got to be a lot more regulation. And perhaps when we go to the community scheme ombud service, we can address that with them to take stronger action. I see that a lot of, two people on our site, hi Chantal, lovely to have you here, and Annette, have said that owner apathy is the order of the day. And it's not only in the inner city, it's everywhere. You know, owners just want somebody else to fix things, want somebody else to do things. How do we turn that around, Jacob?
Well, I gave you guys the concept of the ombud. Secondary to that, in terms of the jurisdiction, I'm aware that legal professionals have had difficulties at the magistrate courts because it's not as easy as the high courts. With the motion court proceedings, he who alleges must put to proof, as you will know. With the issue of a healthy body corporate, it's a hands-on-deck approach between the owners and other service providers and your major creditor. Your major creditor is the City of Johannesburg because they are the supplier of your major services. Now, as trustees, you've got to execute your fiduciary duties impartially, but you've got to stick to principles of sound corporate governance as well. And I will always suggest that trace all the owners that owns this sectional titles unit. And as Adele rightfully referred to, if you've got disputes, the ombudsman acts as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. It's cheaper, it's easily accessible, it's faster, because the process of litigation at the courts, it takes longer and it's quite expensive.
And I just wanted to find out from you, you know, stories of hope. How do we, are there good stories of hope in the inner city? Are there buildings that you can see have actually stood out for you, that are taking control?
There are many success stories. The city of Johannesburg, obviously, they've got a public participation process in terms of their integrated developmental planning and the spatial framework planning. If you look to your inner city, the area of Absa Precinct, I think Itemba Properties came there. They've regenerated that block successfully. They might have injected about 1 billion because it's very expensive to regenerate the city. Of that 1 billion, they qualify for your urban developmental zone tax incentive. If you look down to Melville, there's 27 boxes there. It's a good story to talk about. If you look into certain areas of your northern suburbs, you've got the Victoria Yards. If you go down to Maboneng, which was a breaking ground story, it is a success story. In fact, the process of regeneration there, it's now being accelerated by your major construction and property development companies such as Itemba and others. You've got William Kenridge there on Arts on Main, who bought out the first guy who started the process of regenerating that precinct. But more importantly, if I may conclude, you need to, once you regenerate Marina, as an owner, as the city, you've got to work hand in glove with your security sector to get rid of grime and crime, because these days in these hijacked buildings, we've got a proliferation of criminals and guns. It's not a safe space as you would like it to be. In conclusion, you've got to make sure that you've got a strong law enforcement arm from SAPS nationally, locally, the city of Johannesburg, Johannesburg Metropolis Department. From an environmental point of view, we also have green scorpions. You will not know much as an ordinary sectional title owner. It's more of a specialist arm. You've got to work with the green scorpions, particularly when you've got open urban spaces such as parks. They fall under the jurisdiction of city parks as a municipal-owned entity. In that, they also have green law enforcement arm, which works in love with the Department of Agriculture. From a local level, I suppose it's pick it up. So you've got to have these improvement districts. If you look at the Marshalltown Improvement District, if you look at the Bedford View Improvement District, then you've got all these people, industry leaders in the security cluster. Innovation comes into play, your human resources, well-capacitated people. That's how it should work, as far as I'm concerned.
And what's the mayor of Johannesburg doing about all the dirt and grime in the inner city? Have you seen any movement?
In some areas, they are doing well. In some areas, as you know, it's a DA-led municipality. When you're a property investor or owner or developer, you will work with any successive government. There has to be symmetry, there has to be synergy. Because in terms of accelerated service delivery on the grounds, if you've got blocked drainage, it's going to affect you. It's going to cause environmental nuisance. So I suppose from my observation, they are doing relatively well. However, they could do more. Working together, we can do it.
Definitely. And just another question, last question for you, Jacob, and then I want to go back to each lady and just find out what she thinks are the biggest challenges for her specific building and for the inner city. But managing agents, because a lot of the people listening to the women and men, a couple of men on today, listening to this webinar are managing agents. What are the managing agents like in the inner city in terms of professionalism? And I mean, is there any scope for managing agents who really want to go into this area?
Your traditional dominant management agents in the inner city, it's your likes of Trafalgar and many others. If you go into their websites, they always reinvent themselves as per market changes. You've got an ever-changing African diaspora residents in terms of demographics and geographics as well. All right, you've got this cross migration from one block of flats to another. So the management agents, they also have their business models to cater for the needs of these residents in the inner city. If you've got a well-functioning management agent, the lifts will be working, there will be less overcrowding, there will be a review of maintenance plan, not only on a yearly basis, but on a daily basis. An effective and a successful implementation of a building maintenance plan. It's planning and executing on a daily basis, because your plumbers will give you expert opinion to say, look, these 5 pipes are rusted. For you to keep cost less, let's do what they refer to as group maintenance. Let's replace them as a one-off thing instead of buying them one-on-one and as problems occur. So if you've got an effective management agent, they also get linked if they don't have in their offices good plumbers, good electricians, good painters. And all these people are accredited to different industries, such as your Electrical Compliance Association, your Plumbing Association, because if they do wrong things on the buildings, it's going to cost the body corporate a lot of money, which is money that you don't have. So you've got to hold them accountable by reporting them to those organizations. As much as an owner that owes levies will have to be reported to CISOs.
Correct, correct. Thank you, Jacob. So from a practical point of view, for me, if we implemented legislation that just spoke to compulsory training, if you become a trustee, and I've seen all the comments, you know, it's all about trustees and owners not taking responsibility, and it's tough to be a trustee because you've got all these legal things, but you know, you own an asset, it's got value, and you're almost a business owner of this asset, so you need training. And I think in many parts of the world, it's actually compulsory that you need to be trained. You know, it's within 60 days or within 90 days of being appointed a trustee, then you have to go for training. Otherwise, you automatically stop being a trustee. And I think that's the direction that we have to take, but it must be sooner rather than later. If I can go back, thank you, Jacob. That was really insightful. Can I go back to Johanna? Johanna, just one last sentence from you about how you feel with regard to the challenges at your building, and yeah, how you feel about that.
Well, Marina, it's such a puzzling stories, because as you look at these issues we have spoken about, at the end of the day, they accumulate the high lot of crimes like gender-based violence, domestic violence. So we really need the administrative officers to run the city properly, because at the end of the day, the lives of the people are very affected, health-wise, personal-wise. So I'm hoping for the best. As a woman and fighting for women and children, this is my very concern of where are we going and how we're gonna achieve this implementation that our government plus the community are trying to implement.
Thank you, Johanna. Adele, what are your thoughts on the challenges, the biggest thing facing you right now, as we take a photograph of your building now?
Hey, in our building, our challenges is the levy payment. You see, when COVID hit us, and a lot of people lost their jobs, and those that are still having their jobs, maybe they were facing a salary cut, you might find that they're not being able to pay the full amount that they're required to do so. And then it puts a strain on our financial status, that we're not collecting as much as we would like to. And then which leads to, you might find that we can't even have our reserve fund. And we're supposed to have that in order to maintain the building, you know. Yeah, that is a big challenge at the moment that we are facing. Yeah.
I don't think you're the only ones. I know buildings all over the country are facing that challenge as well. Sammy, is there anything that you would like to add?
Just in short, a well-maintained building means a long lifespan.
Couldn't have said it better. Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% right. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. It's been great. And Jacob also, really, really appreciate your insights. And I think if government and if communities do nothing, your buildings will remain in an unsafe and unfeasible position. And I think it's up to all of us to really, really try and move forward, try to get the right people to listen, try to get the right training programs in. I mean, just one little simple 6-week Saturday afternoon training course has helped. And that's practical. It's all practical stuff. Less talking, more doing, and I think that's really what Women in Sectional Title is all about. We're encouraging a multidisciplinary approach to changing the redevelopment of the inner city, and we hope that it's been of value to you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to our next webinar. Thank you so much to our sponsors as well. Really been brilliant. Take care and keep safe.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you.
All right.